Welcome back to Inspired or Acquired. This is a podcast where we interview real business owners, share real numbers, give them a valuation, and ask whether or not they would sell their business. We have a fun and very real conversation today. We've got Ian McKenna, who is the founder and owner of Intech Scientific out of New Hampshire. And he has a great business that he's grown over the years that we're going to hear all about. And as always, I'm joined by Clint Fiore, business broker out of Texas. So Ian, good afternoon. How are you today?
How are you guys? Good. Thanks for having me.
Good to be here, man. So for folks who maybe might not be familiar with your business, Ian, tell us a little bit about Intech. Like, what do you do? Who are your customers? And we'll go from there.
Sure. Yeah. So I do field service on scientific instrumentation, basically. I'm a business to business, so I primarily work with pharmaceutical industries, academia, various labs that use the equipment that I work on.
So we're talking like Harvard, Mass General.
Exactly.
You're going in and fixing their equipment and servicing their labs.
Yeah. Excited to have this conversation with you. I've done a couple deals around this space. The ones I had worked on were in the West Coast, but it was microscopes, calibration and service for similar customers, institutional customers. That's very niche. There's only a handful of players in it, and they all know each other. It's a very tight-knit group. I wanted to learn a little bit more about your business, but for the sake of this show, we're all about kind of ballparking what a business is worth and getting your feedback on would you or would you not sell and why. And to get there in your business, it's going to take kind of playing 20 questions with you, if you don't mind, to just kind of unpack how this all works.
Not at all. Yeah.
Sure. I saw in the show notes before you come on that you have no employees, correct?
Correct. I'm a sole proprietor.
Okay. And you last year did about 1.3 million revenue and roughly 650 in what we'd call discretionary earnings. That would be net profit plus what you pay yourself and pay perks and benefits in the company. Does that sound ballpark correct?
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So that's right at about 50%, margin in terms of seller benefit. It's phenomenal numbers.
That's typically what the margins are. Yeah. Anywhere between 40 and 60, depending on the year and what my outlays are.
Yeah. What's your main expenses in that? So what are you paying $600,000-$700,000 of expenses on?
Inventory. It's all inventory. Yeah. I mean, I have a few costs for renting a storage unit to hold my inventory, but maybe some insurance. But other than that, it's all inventory.
So you run it from home and travel to these machines?
I do. Yeah, I work out of the house.
And inventory, is that parts for repairs or are you selling new?
I do both. Service is my primary business, but I do some refurbishments of these instruments and sell them. That's not really the focus. Honestly, I don't have a lot of time to focus on the sales. They really just kind of come organically as I'm doing service, and I'll have a customer just be like, "Hey, I'm looking for this instrument. Do you know where I can find one?" No, just so happens I've got one.
Yeah, that's great. I think you created a great business, a great lifestyle for yourself. A lot of the valuation conversation is going to hinge around what I would call transferability. When I look at your website, I see the about page and I see, you were launched in 2016 by Ian McKenna. That's you. Ian is a factory trained, has a 20 years customer and field service experience in words I don't understand and letters and acronyms I don't understand.
Yeah.
And when you call, you talk to, Ian, who's this engineer and knows his crap. And, you just sound like you really know what you're doing. And when I think about buying your company, it's intimidating because I'm like, I don't think I could fill your shoes, man. And so there's a lot of this valuation conversation would be, speak to that just for a second. Could someone without your background, be able to fill your shoes and take over this business and make the kind of revenue and profit that you make? Or would they have to hire someone with your training, or would the buyer really just have to be someone with your kind of pedigree?
I think there are some prerequisites. They would have to have a science background. Computer science would be good as well. And then just training them up would take some time, because even though you know the science and you're good at the hardware, there's really a lot of different aspects to this job. There's time management, there's organizational skills, there's people skills. This business that I created, it's all really about customer service and establishing good relationships and maintaining those good relationships. And in order to do that, you need to be able to fix their instrumentation. So if you go in there and you're not able to fix something, or they're down for weeks, chances are they might not be repeat customers.
Yeah.
It is kind of challenging to find people that can do this job and do it well. You can find anybody to do this job, but doing it well is a completely different story. And in that way, I could grow the business, finding the right people to do this work. It's just because I'm a sole proprietor, I'm constantly focused on just establishing relationships with my customers, making sure I get there when I say I'm going to get there, and fixing it. And, by the time the day's end, I get home, I've got my family to, and I focus on, and I don't have any other time to really look to hire somebody or do any of that stuff. So it's
yeah.
As a sole proprietor, it's a bit challenging to do anything else other than go out and fix instruments and talk to people.
Okay, let's keep going deeper here. I'm going to keep asking you questions.
Sure.
And we're going to keep peeling back the layers of this onion. This is a fascinating business, fascinating conversation to me. Tell me about your customers. I want to know two things. I want to know, first off, your biggest 1, 2, or 3 customers. How much of that 1.3 million of revenue are they providing? So do we have high customer concentration is what I'm asking, or is it spread out over a bunch of customers?
It's spread out across a lot of different customers. I do have 1 or 2 large customers where I'm getting probably 300,000 to 350 a year. It's a contract research organization. So, companies that don't have this instrumentation will send their samples to this lab. They'll run their analyses on their samples. And so, at this particular lab, I support about 18 instruments.
Yeah.
So it's,
So that's a big one. That's maybe 20, 25% of your revenue from one customer.
Yeah. My niche is focusing on labs that really don't have large budgets. So the bigger companies can go to the OEMs, and larger companies that will charge them more for the same service that I provide. But when you have a new lab that's just opening up, or an academic lab, let's say, that's really got tight budgets, that's where a guy like me really kind of thrives, because I don't have a lot of overhead. I don't have to, charge, I don't want to say a fraction, but maybe half the cost of an OEM, which is really attractive to a lot of people. And particularly in the New England area, it's just rich with entrepreneurs that are coming out of these universities and starting up labs with razor thin budgets.
Yeah.
So it's
sounds like a great market for you.
Hey guys, wanted to take a quick break from the show just to tell you about our companies for a second. I'm Patrick Dichter, and I own Appletree Business Services. We do quality, accounting, and tax nationwide. So if you're running a business or looking to buy a business, we'd love to help you out with accounting and tax services. You can find us at appletreebusiness.com. And Clint, tell us about Bison Business.
Yeah, Bison Business is my firm. We do nationwide M&A. So we help people buy and sell companies. Most of our customers have companies in the 1 to 20 million revenue range, profitable businesses. So if you've got one and you're ready to get acquired, you can reach out to us at bisonbusiness.com for a complimentary evaluation. We can get you to market and get you sold. If you're a listener that's a buyer that wants to buy a company that size, make sure you're on our email list, because we'll send you out deals first before they hit the market anywhere else. But we'd love to serve you anytime you're thinking of acquiring or selling your business. We want to be your first stop at Bison Business.
Awesome. Now back to the show.
When you get a new customer, are you getting them on contracts, or is it just call me when something breaks, or like?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So I do sell contracts. I sell like full coverage contracts. So if the instrument breaks, I have a 2-day response time. I come in, I fix their instrument, they're happy. And then, if I keep them happy, then they'll come back to me the following year. I'll have other budget-minded types of contracts where I do labor only, where they just pay for my labor and my time, and any parts that are required for the service, they'll be billed separately for it. And then, of course, there's on a case-by-case basis. If something breaks, then they just call me up. And
when someone does a 1-year contract, are they paying you every month on that contract, or is it just sort of like an agreement of how you're going to work together with them?
Most of them are paid upfront.
Yes.
And I do have a couple that pay on a monthly basis.
And when they pay up front, that covers like a certain scope of work, maybe not parts, but like the preventative and routine maintenance and the kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like,
so typically the full coverage contract covers everything from parts to preventative maintenance.
So let's just ballpark this, out of 1.3 million revenue, how much of that is coming from folks that are on the recurring revenue, like the contracted, versus the just call me because something broke?
Yeah. So it's the number of contracts I've gotten has been trending up. And the per diem kind of work has been trending somewhat down. So last year, I think contracts came to roughly about 350 for the entire year, whereas everything else was, on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Tell me about market saturation and opportunity here. So like, if you could clone yourself and there was all of a sudden 3 Ians, could you triple this business really quick? Is there that much opportunity out there?
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking this is because I'm a sole proprietor and I just have so much bandwidth. There's only so many hours in the day. I'm kind of like a compressed spring with this company. Like if I were able to expand it out, I think it would just kind of explode, particularly in this area, because it's so rich with pharma, biopharma, and just the scientific community is large in general in this area.
And you know how to find those customers and call on them, but you just don't have time because you're already.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in this business for so long that I have a pretty good network of clients that I can reach out to.
Yeah.
Right. And right now, my business is strictly word of mouth. I don't do any marketing. I don't go to really any conferences that I probably should be going to, but don't have the time to. And so, but by just doing those two things, I think it would blow up the business.
All right, that's a wrap. I'm going to buy the business, and we are done recording.
Let's not go to air with this one, Patrick.
Yeah, we're going to talk price first, Patrick.
Okay. So this is a super fun conversation, and yeah, we should think about just not airing this one and figuring this out. I feel like you need a partner like a me or a Patrick, to really realize the potential here. But My opinion is starting to form on your value. And from doing stuff similar to this in these niche industries, and you have some issues, like you have a major owner dependence. You've said some words that scare me a little bit as a buyer: the relationships you built over time, the expertise you built over time, the fact that you're doing essentially B2B sales, customer service, and technician work. Those are very disparate skills. It's hard for any one person to do, which makes it hard to sell, quite frankly. I think you could probably go to market today and fetch 1 to 1.6 million or so for your business. I'm going to broadly paint that range, but there's an asterisk. The asterisk is you'd have to do a pretty extensive training and transition period. So I would anticipate at least 6 months of training and transition. You could probably get paid a reasonable salary during that time. And then you may even have some stipulations on the deal to where some of these key customers need to stick around a certain amount of time to get the full amount. So you may get most of it at closing and then have a holdback amount or an earn out component just to protect that seller, to protect that buyer from, big relationships go away, you leave them hanging, don't train and transition them, and now they're left holding the bag. So they'd want some help and they'd want some assurance of this current customer base staying intact and being able to transfer to them. But I think that would be the range you'd probably look at if we were to do a deal now, and we'd have to find kind of a needle in a haystack buyer that has some background in this space. I think we could look at competitors that are in this space that have some technicians trained that would want to absorb your customer base. I think that would probably be your number one choice, but we could also look at individuals that have similar backgrounds, and we could try to find an individual buyer that wants to get an SBA loan and buy this outright for themselves, just to kind of fill your shoes and take over. So that's my gut reaction. Just if you were like, Clint, I need to get out of this. I don't want to just walk away from it, but I want to be done within a year. What do I do? I would say it would be something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I plan to stick around for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been approached several times. I feel like I'm not your typical business owner. I went out and did this on my own because I love the work. And then I had to kind of build my business around what I do. So it's been a learning curve in terms of running an actual business.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking of it as, this business is looking at it as an investment. It's just something I do and I'm making a good living from it.
Yeah.
And now I've been approached and I'm scratching my head what if I did try to sell this? What would it be worth, And
I love stories like yours because there's so many good businesses that just started that same way. I'm just trying to make a living for my family. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me one day, I might have an asset here, and you do. I really do think you've got an asset here. But I want to paint another picture too, because I feel like you've got a fork in the road here. Okay. So it's you can just continue on what you're doing as a lifestyle business, no employees. And then just whenever you feel like it, you could sell and do that type of structure I just described.
Yeah.
And it requires very little to no change of what you're doing. If you said, hey, Clint, I want to maximize my exit and I've got a few years of runway to do that, then it's a different conversation. And the fork in the road is this. So I view this business, which is run from your home and a storage facility, and then you go on site to all these customers, and it sounds like there's more customers to go get if you had time to do it. I see it as really two main functions. It's B2B sales, and it's the actual technical work. And I think your path to maximizing your exit would be to split those functions into two seats in an accountability chart, as we say in the EOS system, or an org chart, and start to build like a small team. And even if that's, I think the most low hanging fruit way to do that, if I'm in your shoes and wanted to build a valuable business that's transferable to a new owner that people would pay me more for than I could get right now, is I would really focus on that technical part and try to get a technician or two working for you that can do work to your standards for these customers on site at the facilities, so that you can free your time to do the B2B sales and to grow your book of business and your client. And so that might mean you need to get on a path to become a company of 3 instead of 1.
Yeah.
And I think if you did that, you could potentially double or triple the value of your company pretty quickly, because you're going to need a full-time technician probably just to do what you do on the technical side. And then when you start selling, you're going to quickly outgrow them when you start opening the floodgates of getting new customers. So you may need 2. And your margin might compress to where you're no longer making 50%, but you might be making 30, 40% on double or triple the revenue. But from a valuation standpoint, it's going to skyrocket, because it's going to open up a whole new world of buyers, because now buyers that don't have your technical expertise are now not afraid of this anymore, because Bob and Sue that you hired are great technicians that have been trained by you, and they're servicing all the accounts, and you're using most of your time doing the business side of the business. So you're paying the bills, you're making sales, you're doing you're managing the people, and you're ensuring the customers are happy, and so like that's what you're doing. And there's 1,000 times more people that can do that than can fix scientific instruments, right? And so now we have 1,000 times more buyers at our disposal, and we have earnings that are probably double from what they are. Let's say over 5 years you double earnings, and by tripling revenue, by you maybe get triple the amount of customers, your margin compresses a bit, and now you've got like a 1.2 of earnings company. But because we've de-risked it a bit with those employees, and you still don't have a ton of employees, it's just maybe a team of 3.
Yeah.
3 well-paid folks. We might, instead of being in that 2 to 3x multiple range, we might be in that 4 to 5x multiple range. And now you've got a company that's could be worth 5 or 6 mil, and with that major change. And would that be, I know that's uncomfortable, because you'd have to probably make less next year than you did this year. You'd have to reinvent yourself a little bit from being the go-to that's like, hey, just call my cell phone, I'll be there tomorrow, which is your customers love. And you'd have to get out of that comfort zone. Yeah. But think about the payoff. Like, if you did that, it might be worth it, to try to reinvent yourself and set yourself up for that type of exit. So when you think about those two paths, that fork in the road, does that, what does your gut say? Like, what are you leaning towards, and how do you react to that?
Yeah. So I feel like the hardest part of growing this business would be initially getting those first couple of employees and figuring out how to manage people, and delegating work. That's tough for me. I usually like to do everything on my own. And so, that's not good for growing a business, but it's just kind of how I operate. I understand, like, if somebody were to come think about buying my company, they basically buying me and my expertise, and, along with my inventory and my customer list. So I feel like a company that does similar work to what I do, that's looking to expand their footprint and expand their product line, would be most compatible, as opposed to, say, a private equity firm just coming and buying, to try to grow from that. So and then I think, well, I'm doing pretty good for myself. I can support my family. I'm able to save some money. I'm not really working 80 hours a week. I might be working between 30 and 40. Why stress myself out?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. It's a fork in the road.
Yeah.
There might be a third fork where maybe you sell, like, keep 20 or 30% ownership, and they want you to stay around for 3 to 5 years, and then
I was going to bring that up, Patrick. I think there's that. You could bring on a partner essentially by selling. You could do what's called a majority recap, where you sell the majority stake in your business, but someone that you think is going to really grow it, and then you could stick around and maybe help them add accounts and sell and increase the size of the pie for everyone, and then someday sell that last 20 or 30% and get another payday. That's one structure, but actually, Patrick, like, I've done a deal on an engineering firm that was a one-man show, similar numbers to Ian's. And I just thought of it while we're talking, of like, his deal was one of my favorites of all time. He did like platting of sites for big developers. So like a developer putting in 1,000 new lots in a subdivision, he like does all the engineering of the land. I don't know. I don't even remember all the correct terminology, but he was a one-man show. Like, he would get the relationship with the developers. He would sell himself on doing the job. He was super efficient, just like Ian. He would be the best price, just like Ian. And everybody loved working with him because he was really competent and knew what he was doing. But he ran into that same bandwidth issue of, like, he'd have to sell the job and then he'd have to do the work. And he could only go so far here. And so he was honest with himself, because I had the same conversation and I was like, hey, you could make your business a lot more valuable if you took on employees. And he was like, Clint, I'm at this point. He's a little older than you, Ian, but he was like, I am just not going to do that. Like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. No one's going to be able to do it my way. And I've tried that. He used to have a bunch of employees in the past, and he like had fired everyone, and he just had this nice lifestyle now that he was enjoying. And he's like, I'm not going to go back to that. I hated my life when I had a bunch of employees. And so, like, he was just honest. Like, he had tried that and backed off and was comfortable. And so what we did is we found another engineering firm that had great engineers. And he really actually liked the sales and marketing part more than he liked doing the technical work part, which is kind of rare for an engineer, but he's a people person and enjoyed it. And so he found an engineering company that could do the work to his standards, that had 30 people that were, like his caliber people. And so they could easily absorb more sales. And he sold all the company for $1 million. I don't remember, but it was similar of a deal size. But we negotiated basically a commission sales agreement for him and this engineering firm. And he ended up making more money semi-retired in the next 5 years than he did when he was responsible for everything. And after the deal, like, we talked maybe a year or two later, he said, Clint, I feel like you made me a teenager again because I clock in and I clock out and I don't have to worry about anything. It's just like when I had a job in the movie theater as a teenager, like, and I'm making more money because his actual best leverage was like those relationships with those developers, and bringing those big projects in is what makes you tons of money. And so he was able to like get a piece of the work he brings in, but he now had this semi-retired lifestyle with his wife where he'd do as much traveling, and they have an RV, and so he'd like travel, sell, not have to manage anybody, not have to make payroll or anything. And he was making more money because he was able to spend more of his time doing the biz dev, which being a rainmaker for the company. And both the buyer and the seller are just over the moon with that relationship. I think they're still going strong, 5 or 6 years later now. So like that could be another option too, is just do something like that.
Yeah. Again, I think that's the right buyer. I'd be able to probably do something like that where I could, start, if I were absorbed by some company, I could probably start training more people to do what I do and then start kind of offloading a lot of the work that I do and wind myself down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you think of, so you got approached and it's got you curious. Yeah, I guess but like, how do you think about selling?
Or are these like random people that wanted to buy you that approached you?
Yeah, just emails out of the blue, kind of. In fact, I got one today.
That's probably our listeners are out there hitting everybody up. They're aggressive. Like there's people just aggressively hitting up every business owner right now, seeing if they're open to selling. And so it seems like the timing of a message hits you right. Now you're curious. Like when you think about selling, is it a matter of like, do you equate that to retiring or like what would make you interested in a deal versus just continuing on your own?
Yeah, well, I look at it as, I'm going to be doing what I'm doing for a while. It would be nice at some point to not have all of the weight on my shoulders, so that I could start maybe 5 years down the road or something, after I've trained a bunch of people to do basically what I do. I could start kind of winding myself down and then just retiring. The other option is just to do it myself. I could stay in business, make these kind of margins for the next 5 years, and then decide, okay, well, I'll take on maybe just a couple clients, work part-time, and have some money in my pocket. And, maybe work.
What age are you, Ian? You look pretty young to me, but like,
I'm 50 actually.
You're 50.
Yeah.
Do you have like a target date or anything like that you've been dreaming of like, this is, when I 55. Get to a certain age? What?
55.
55?
55.
Wow, yeah. That's fun.
You have kids?
I do. Yeah. I got 3. So I'm getting a 19-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
Oh, 4-year-old.
Yeah. So
that's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, I mean, if that's your dream is to like by 55 be able to like move to a more retired or semi-retired state and shift gears, then yeah, I think that's an adequate window of time where you just have to decide, do I want to build this up into a business with employees that is a lot more marketable for a higher valuation and bigger numbers and more headaches in the meantime? Or do I want to just be frugal, live on less than I make, invest really well, do as much as I can myself, not have to reinvent the wheel? And then, if you're making the type of money you're making, you might be able to put away a couple $1,000,000 over the next 5 years on top of whatever you've already saved. And then you can maybe do a deal like I described and do a transition out, and there's another million and change. And so like, that's not a bad plan either. So like, I don't know, like it's kind of choose your own adventure here.
Yeah. I'm exploring my options. That's when I get these emails inquiring about buying the company, I get curious and say, okay, well, what can I get now versus, how much am I going to make over the next 5 years? I mean, a nice payday immediately might be nice, but am I going to be happy? Is it going to be worth my, the headaches I might come across in the future if I do sell? Or, will I be able to put more money?
If you're happy working another 5 years, it's going to be hard for anyone to buy this from you right now, because you're going to quickly do that math and say, man, I was already planning on working another 5 years. I can make more than what this person's going to pay me by just saving profit over the next 5 years. And then I'll still be able to sell this business for the same amount in 5 years. So like, if you don't have a compelling reason and you're not trying to reinvent yourself to scale it up or have a strategic partner come on to scale it up together, like just doing an outright sale right now. Yeah. I've been in this situation. It's like, I wouldn't take you on as a broker unless I was really convinced Ian has a compelling reason he wants to sell, because I would just be worried that we'd get a buyer falling in love and we get deep in the deal. And then you'd call me one day and say, Clint, I did the back of the napkin math and what am I doing? Like this, this doesn't make sense. And so, yeah, that's a good thought.
Yeah. It's always nice to have options.
Absolutely.
Well, sounds like maybe you can sell to me, and working for 5 years, I'll deal with finding the techs and maybe retain 20%, and then we'll grow the pie and sell for a multiple and sell off into the sunset.
Let's take it down, Patrick. We're doing this.
Have you raised prices in the past year or two?
I have. Yeah. I've had to. Yeah. So I think I started, my hourly rates vary based on the instrumentation that I work on. But the higher end, more complicated equipment, now I charge about $400 an hour. I started off about 300. Yeah. Some of the manufacturers, they're charging 600, 650 an hour now. I think the same type of work. So it's significant savings for labs and people who are on a budget, for sure.
And are you on any like preferred vendor lists with certain brands?
No.
Well, it's super interesting just to hear where you're at. I mean, it's impressive to see what you've built, and obviously, you do a great job for your clients. So, this was a fun conversation, a real one, given you have people reaching out to you and you're kind of in the thick of this fork in the road decision here. So, Clint, any other questions or lasting thoughts from you?
I wanted to recommend a couple books for Ian or anyone else in Ian's situation, where you're just deciding, if I'm a sole proprietor making a good living, do I want to build this up into something more valuable to sell it, or do I want to keep doing what I'm doing, and then just do a little less exciting of a deal one day, but live the lifestyle I want in the meantime? A good resource, one of my favorite classic business books is the E-Myth, the E-Myth Revisited. That's a good one. And then another one is called Built to Sell by John Warlow. Either of those will just kind of get you into this mindset of like, I need to look at my business through the eyes of an owner sitting in the owner's box, and how could I systemize this and build it into something that a buyer would be excited about. And it just kind of, both of those are pretty comprehensive over the main things that you would need to figure out for yourself. And so those are a great launching off point for you, Ian, the E-Myth Revisited or Built to Sell, for just having that internal conversation. And I think once you read one or both of those, that'll help you make a clear-eyed decision about this fork in the road that you face, and whether or not you want to continue doing what you're doing, which is perfectly fine. You're crushing it. You're doing great. Or if you want to like build to sell, so I would encourage that. And then, certainly would love to be a resource for you. If we can help, if a conversation heats up with any of these parties and you want to just give me a call and walk it through with me, like happy to do that with you.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. If people want to connect with you or find you online.
Yeah, they can go to my website's intechscientificsolutions.com. They can reach me at Ian at intechscientificsolutions.com.
All right. Great. Thanks, Ian.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate the time.